Okay, so howdy and welcome to our workshop on building for the solution challenge. If you all haven't already heard it from me yet, the solution challenge for 2021 is now open. You can register for it, access all the resources, start working on your project, and submit to the challenge. So, this workshop will basically help you kickstart your project. Um, we'll be talking about just in general about the solution challenge and also how we have structured and how we'll be navigating our projects. We also have an opportunity for a project that you can work on and submit to the solution challenge already ready for you. So stay tuned for that towards the end of the workshop. And yeah, we'll be covering all of these topics, and I'll also be posting some links in the chat throughout so that you all can follow along. But let's get started.
Hey guys, so we're really excited about this year's DSC and the Solution Challenge, and we really hope to get submissions from you guys this year because Google does a lot to support the Solution Challenge and DSCs who participate in it. Basically, the Solution Challenge allows you to work on a project that is helpful and like meaningful to your local community, and you can show some sort of impact that you have had on it, and you can basically compete for a lot of really cool prizes and support by Google to further your app or anything that you build. So there's a lot to be gained from this, and we really want you to consider participating in it, and we will help support your development the entire time with tools and workshops, and we'll help you manage your project with meetings, and it will be really good if you guys choose to do this. You can go to the next slide. So these are some of the major areas in which the solutions that you come up with should be focused on. You can actually pick one or more of these solutions to participate in. Some of the really cool projects that have been done in the past have been on a really large scale, including some that predicted floods in Indonesia. But there's also so many smaller scale projects that you can work on within the College Station community. And we're going to talk about one of those projects later in the slides. But yeah, so definitely you can pinpoint any problem that you find in the Bryan College Station community, and we can help you get started working on Google technologies and open source projects to try to come up with something really cool. Yeah, so if you have an idea, you can go to this link with the QR code and submit it to us. It's pretty simple. You just kind of have to give us a brief overview of what kind of idea you want to pursue and what basic area of helping the local community, like in the last slide, you're pursuing. And we can help you find a team with a brainstorming session that we hope to have later once we get all the submissions. And we can also help you get mentorship from the think tank and other experts in the DSC community and accessing all these resources. We're going to have a lot of workshops, and yeah, it'll be really cool. And we hope that you can do this. And the deadline for this, as of right now, is February 17th. So get your submissions in if you're interested. And you can also just let us know if you're interested in participating on an already started idea and you want to just join another team.
Okay, so some of the topics that we'll be covering today is Git, Trello, and software.com's teams. So first of all, Git. So many of you might have heard of this or encountered it in some way or the other. Essentially, Git is a distributed version control. What that means is it's Google Docs for code, but just on steroids, right? So you can see your history of coding. You can try some new things around with it. You can even have like two separate things going on in the same code base, making sure that one is stable, one is unstable, or one where you're like trying new things or doing some experimentation. Multiple people can collaborate on a single code base, and you can see kind of how the progression of the code base is, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's exactly, almost exactly like Google Docs in the standard sense, where like you can see what other person's code is, you can see when the last edit was, what the last edit was, and how progressively your code changed. But you can also see, as I was saying, you can create different sectors of it, which is called branches, and we'll get into it later. But so far, Git is Google Docs for codes, right? Um, right, right. Let's see. Oh, there we go. So here are some Git commands. I'll just kind of explain what each of them do in a like basic manner, and then we'll send you all a cheat sheet for Git, and y'all can use that, and it will have descriptions of everything. But I strongly believe that getting started with Git on a simple repository will help you just get like understanding it as soon as possible. If I explain these to you, you will still be confused until you actually use Git on a repository and get started. By the way, repository is literally just a folder or a bunch of folders where your code is, and a folder that you want to keep track of, right? So actually, to get started with the repository, all you would do is git init inside the repository, inside the folder, inside the terminal, and that will set up your Git status and everything for the whole repository, right? Sometimes, let's say, and this is how I started doing it, is I just wanted to copy one of my friend's codes and start editing on it, right? And his code was on GitHub or GitLab or any one of these other remote repository banks sort of thing, right? I'm sure you all would have heard of GitHub by now, but what Git clone would do is essentially copy paste all of that code in a systematic manner on your computer and allow you to play with it while also maintaining the Git status of it. So while maintaining all of the, I guess, all of the records of how you changed code while you edit code, right? Git add will allow you to add new files to the repository um, and to just keep track of. Git commit will make sure that, hey, this code is somewhat stable. I want to record this as a like a checkpoint in a game. Like let's say, for example, a lot of people find this like Minecraft, where like if you sleep on a bed, whatever happens, you can always go back to that bed whenever you die, right? So Git commits are sort of these beds that you set up where you can spawn off wherever you die, or like checkpoints in games. Um, if you all play a lot of games on literally anything, they usually have checkpoints. So these are sort of those checkpoints for your code. Um, these are kind of okayish commands. You can get deeper into this, but usually VS Code or any other um, IDE or text editor will help you with these two, these three at least. Um, Git pull and Git push. So Git pull, so let's say, as I was saying, so there's remote repositories and local repositories. Remote is essentially in that code bank online where you have some code, and that's, I guess, that's where you are storing code for anywhere to access anywhere in the world, versus local is on your computer. So in that remote repository, if you wanted to pull the latest version of that code, you would use git pull. And if you wanted to push your version of code to that remote repository, you would use git push. And that's sort of how we go through it. I will send out the Git cheat sheet in Slack and in the chat once I stop talking. So you'll have access to that as well. So yeah, as I said, Git repositories, there's local, which is on your device, and remote, which is basically on a server or a code bank. GitHub is one of the more popular ones, and for the scope of a Google Solutions Challenge, we will be using GitHub. GitLab is something that you should get at least a look at. because a lot of private companies do use GitLabs because they have some extra features that no one in school will actually use, but just it helps these private companies maintain huge source codes, right? Um, Also, GitHub is owned by Microsoft. So let's say like a company like Google might not have a repository on GitHub, but it might have a repository on GitLab just because, or Bitbucket, or something similar because they just don't want to be working off of other companies' data and they don't want their data to be stored by Microsoft for that example. Um, So Git branches. Remember when I said you can have different sectors where you can code and experiment and then merge that. So usually there's branches of the same code. So let's say here is your code base. You want to experiment something. So you start writing code, you create a commit. This works, then this works, then this works. And while doing that, someone is also editing your master branch of code. By the way, can you see my pointer? Like my arrow on, okay, cool.
Yes.
So someone is also editing on the master branch. And then when you're done committing this feature, like let's say you wanted to add dark mode on a website. Now it's definitely going to break some CSS if you directly do it on master. So what you do is you try to create this feature branch for dark mode. And then you just say, hey, dark mode is fully working based on this code base, and I'll just merge. Now there might be something called a merge conflict that happens if there's too many changes in the master branch, but there usually isn't. Now, I guess a year ago, main was not a thing, but now we use main instead of master and branch names like feature branches instead of slave branches just to like get the nomenclature right and inclusive. So it's main and feature versus master and slave. So just keep that in mind. This might not be a bigger issue right now, but eventually when you go into the industry, or let's say someone in the industry looks at your code and they see, hey, this person has a main branch instead of master branch, they know what the current nomenclature of coding is, they know what the current industry standard is, and that might give you a boost, right? Again, this is something very technical that only technical people will know how to find. But if they do find it, it's a super good impression. Like when I was interviewed, I actually had the main branch on and on one of my start repositories, and they really liked it and they said it to me in an interview. So that's something to keep in mind. But Git branches, right? Um, you can learn a lot more about Git on a crash course online. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there. What I'm covering is just the basics, bare basics of Git, just to get your nomenclature right, just to get the jargons in. But I would, if you have never worked with Git, or if you want to work on a project, I would highly suggest you look at what GitHub is, what Git is, and do like a 30-minute video on Git and just try it out on a repository and get started, right? Um, it's super easy to manage once you get the knack of it. Many people will try and go for GitHub Desktop. I personally feel if you start with command line and then transition to GitHub Desktop, will be better for you because you will know a lot more terminology and you would know what GitHub Desktop is doing, right? Versus what you're doing, right? So just a tip there.
So we're also going to be using Trello for the projects that we have for DSC, and a lot of that is because a lot of the more technologically apt companies right now are doing all their projects in an agile development method, and Trello allows organizations to basically have like a Kanban board of keeping track of their progress. So that basically includes having like to-do lists and like completed and like blocked sections that you can put tasks into individually. And this speeds up development and makes it very simple because you can come together in meetings while you're working on a project. These are called like Scrum meetings, and usually These would happen every day when you're at work, but looking at as us as students, we can put aside about 1 day per week to do this, depending on the scale and the pace of your project. So in these meetings, you would come together and talk about what you've done in the past week, what you plan to do, and if you had any issues and that you need help on. So this kind of methodology, like Agile itself, has brought in a lot of productivity into the tech space. And this is the reason why a lot of these major companies are now producing more than ever in such a short amount of time, because they perfected this model of development and they use tools like Trello to help them manage these projects. So basically, it's just for organizational purposes, and you can use this as a visual when you're having meetings with your team. We plan to have them for all of the projects, and I will be responsible for holding a meeting with the project manager of each of these teams, and we can get together and talk about the progress that you're making and if there's any help that you need based on the tasks assigned. So you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is kind of an example of what the sprint board could look like for an agile development team. It basically consists of different rows. Some of these are more customizable, like depending on the organization, but this is kind of what we're going with. It's more of a basic thing for our purposes. So the backlog consists of the tools that are the tasks that we're going to work on later and will not be brought into working on this current cycle of development, like the current week, perhaps, if you're working on a week by week basis. So these are things that we're going to focus on later and will be brought into the to-do list at a later time, but we just want to keep track of them. We also have things that are in progress and things that are complete, and you would normally also have rows for tasks that are impeded or blocked. And yeah, so I can share my screen to kind of show this. Okay. Are y'all able to see my screen? Okay. So looking at this, like if I want to, let's say, okay. So if I make a card and say I want to connect to the database for the current project that we're working on, this is the next task, and I would, as the person keeping track of this board, usually the project manager would create these cards. They would write out the different tasks, be like import libraries, check connection, etc. And you can give more details and you can assign a due date and you can set labels to see like what kind of task this is. And you can do a bunch of other things. One of the more important things I think is like you will have access to all of the members on your teams. Like we'll set this up and I can help you with that. But you'll be able to assign a specific person to each of these cards, and this way everybody will know what tasks are assigned to them. And yeah, I think it's a very simple tool. There's like a lot more complicated ones for more functionality. Like a lot of companies use Jira, but Trello is much more simplified version in my opinion, and it's pretty easy to pick up on. So yeah, I'm sure you can.
Fun fact, they're both owned by the same company.
Yeah, Atlassian.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. Um, Yeah, let's get into Teams. So Teams is a product by software.com, um, which helps you basically stay productive and in the flow while coding. Um, this is a tool that I've personally worked on, like I've coded on the base for it because I worked for them. And it's super cool if you really want to get into like productive coding, understanding your metrics, how do you code, and getting deep into stats and all of these other things. Plus, there's a new thing called the flow mode, which will help you in VS Code while coding or any other IDEs or editors for that matter. I'll demo all of this later, but essentially a cool way to code and keep track of your data while also staying productive while coding, right? Um, right, there we go. So the steps for setting up teams, let me actually just demo what this is before. So we'll get into steps later, but essentially this will, oh, second slide. One second. Let's see. Can you all see this README? Okay, yeah. So this is what it would look like in your VS Code. You will have some settings here that you can verify or change or whatever you can do. Um, and essentially, you should be able to see your coding metrics by the day-to-day basis. So let's see. These are just projects. So yeah, so you can see my coding metrics for the past few days. You can see my top projects and all of these. So you can just understand how well you code and when do you code. I have had no coding classes as a senior. That's weird, but yeah. Um, you can kind of see how you can code and stuff, but this is the thing that I like the most, like enable flow mode. So it'll pause your notifications, it'll make everything go into dark mode. It'll set your Slack notifications to off and it'll show on Slack like I am coding right now. So somewhat like if you use Discord for gaming, it's similar, but on Slack, right? So it currently works with the DSC Slack and it does all of these things where like it makes it full screen, it makes turns off your notifications and every other thing that you can see, right? Um, and that's kind of cool. But what's cooler is you can actually go to your dashboard and view all of this data. And like you can see meeting time and all of that data for your productivity. But let's say you make a team on software.com and then you can see the team data. This is a mock team. Only I'm in this team for now. So obviously there's no data. But as soon as like you add 4 team members, it can give you like what is the best coding time for your team. So it can suggest like, hey, you code better here, you code better here, or you might code good better here, right? So it can suggest that for your team, and all of these cool metrics will come into effect. And you can see, hey, this week our team coded, let's say 5 hours versus last week our team coded maybe 7 hours. So maybe bump it up next week or something like that. Um, so just a tool that can help you track your productivity and just understand how much like let's say if finals is affecting your time. If you set a final study time as a meeting time, you can see how much studying for finals has affected your coding and all of these other things because every year we see there's a steep drop off for coding times with finals and like projects kind of go silent during finals or any tests for that example. And we can kind of see, hey, did that actually affect it? Or was that just some byproduct of something else? Or was that just homeworks piling on or something like that? So it'll just keep you, it'll just help you keep track of your team. Um, More or less, that's about it. Again, like you can view all of these cool stats and stuff, but the process of getting started with the team is kinda annoying right now because it's still in beta, but it'll get smoother down the line. So what you can do is you can go to GitHub, uh, you can go plus and create a new organization. Creating an organization is free, so it's pretty simple. Once you create the organization, um, you can go to software, go to teams, and you can say, hey, I want to get started. And then second, you will land on this page. You might have to download the VS Code extension as I was showing this one. You might have to install it on whatever IDE or text editor that you use, and sign up for this. And then you can go into team dashboard and create teams, right? So you can actually do that by clicking on your profile, going down into organizations, and you can create a organization or join one, right? So let's say I'll just create a, since I'm only in two organizations right now on GitHub, it's only showing these two, but you can add another organization, link it, and then you can join it, right? Um, and then the process is pretty simple. Once you create an organization, you can invite team members to it. You can create a whole team inside this organization. So you can create mock teams as well. So let's say there's a backend team, there's a front end team. You can do that if your organization is huge. And it's free. So no payment, no credit card, nothing. Um, and that's kind of how you would set it up. Um, but yeah, this is kind of optional, but I have found that my, like if I code in the productive times that they suggest, I usually code more because they understand like, hey, like just based on the coding activity in the past few months, they understand like, hey, this is the time that this person eats lunch, or oh, they know that I'm busy and this is when I code most. And based on the previous week's activity, they can suggest these code times. And then if I code within them, I'm usually free in that time procrastinating doing schoolwork, but that's about it. So it will help you more or less to be productive and stay in the flow. Um, yeah, as we said in the start, there is a project that we have already paired up with a NGO in College Station that we wanted to present to you. So it's a project with Wienerspiel. Wienerspiel helps dogs or any animals that are maltreated or are hurt or injured or in any way to get them back on track, take care of them, and helps other organizations which do the same in a similar way. They have this big event where they have where they bring in dogs and other pet animals, and they can socialize and all of these things. Probably not this year, but they usually have this huge event every year where they can raise awareness for maltreatments of all of these animals, right? Um, so for them, what we are doing is, since the organization is mostly made up of A&M professors, they don't have a lot of grasp on technology or social media for that matter. And usually younger people like us can help them find these sort of maltreated animals, or can help them um, get in touch with other organizations that we know of on campus that can help them m- get animals and make their lives better, right? So what they want is an application that would allow them to post on all of the social medias at once, keep track of each post on that social media, and also see, hey, this social media post led to these many website visits, or these social media posts went really on fire because we had used these hashtags or these um, sort of delimiters for every social media post, and that's kind of what they need. And this does qualify for the solution challenge. So if you build a team that can do this for the solution challenge, you have 100 guaranteed chance of entry. Plus, you already are pairing up with a local organization, so that checks all of the boxes, right? And that's also one of the causes. So essentially building that application. It will also use, so just the technology stack, or what you can learn with this project is, you can learn backend development, you can learn front end development, you can learn how to maintain a database, you can learn a lot more about security with linking applications like Google, Instagram, or Facebook, Twitter, all of these different platforms into one thing. Um, that'll be pretty useful. You will also be able to develop databases to keep track of which user are allowed access to what things. So basically an IAM management system, which is pretty useful to put on your resume because a lot of companies will ask for this. This is the top one request for consulting companies for software, an IA management system, which is what this last point is all about. So if you build this, this is a really good thing for your resume, but you'll also get, I guess you'll also get experience for all of these other things that you will have access to. Plus, you will have help from the think tank and Google developers all around the world. So we are currently accepting applications for Wienerspiel project, which is tx.ag/dscw, W for Wienerspiel. The deadline is next week, so I'd highly suggest you apply as soon as possible because it is a rolling based form. So as soon as we hit the number of entries, the form will be closed and no one will be allowed to apply anymore. So please apply if you are interested in Google Solution Challenge with this project. You're only allowed to submit one project. So if you have an idea, go for that. Or if you want to work on this, go for that. Both of them are good experiences and they will help you on your resume and in your experience. So any questions so far? I'll open up the chat. Literally any questions with any of the technologies. We covered Git, Trello, Teams.
So for the Wienerspiel project, do we need to be like familiar with front end or back end, or can we be like inexperienced and still be part of the project?
You can be inexperienced and still be part of the project because the main goal is for you to learn and for us to deliver a project, right? So if you're committed to learning and helping this project grow, then that'll be worth it. And all of us are college students. We don't know everything. So you will learn something on the project as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Also, I want to add on the Google Solution Challenge allows teams of 4 a maximum to enter. So we want to cap this project at 4 if the participants want to submit it for the challenge.
Yep. If there are no more questions, what I will do is I'll do a quick Git demo just so that everyone gets I guess, an idea of how it works and all of the things. So yeah, this won't work. Let me actually, let's see. Let me create a new project. Right, so created this new project. Initializing Git is super simple on VS Code at least. You can do, actually there's, where can we go to join pre-existing projects for the Google Solution Challenge? We will be announcing projects on, if I'm not wrong, the channel for team formation, and there we will also be releasing slide decks for that. So you can join it via that. And if you have an idea that you want to apply for, please apply using the links that were mentioned earlier. I think it's DSC pitch, tx.ag/DSC pitch. So apply via those, and you should have access to that. Sorry about, yeah. So initializing repository from Git for Git is super simple in VS Code. You can also go to the terminal, and you can do Git init, right? There we go. That's all it takes to get GitHub set up. Git set up, not GitHub. Um, So now this repository is created. There's a .git folder, which has nothing to do, like you don't have to do anything in there, but that's essentially how they keep track of files. So let's say I want to add a new file called, I don't know, index.
Looks like we've lost Trey. Let me message him.
Hey, can you all see me?
I don't think so. You're frozen?
Frozen, yeah.
Okay, Shrey is having some internet issues. Um, Aditi, do you think you can uh, cover the rest of the demo?
Yeah, let me open up command prompt.
Shrey is looking all weird. While we're setting up the demo, if you all have any other questions, feel free to post them in the chat and we'll address them at the end of the meeting.
Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let me make a project. I just call it test. Apply. And this can just say print hello world. Simple. Save that. Okay. So here we will basically, I actually haven't used the command line for Git in a while. I usually just do it on GitHub desktop. So we'll see if this works. So, and if it's still configured correctly. Okay, cool. So initialized an Git repository in the folder that I'm in. Okay, now we want to use this file and put it to the staging area and to be ready to commit it. So I would just do git.add, and you can do either a period or the name of the specific files that you want to add. So this folder right now only contains this one file. So if I do git.add period, then it should add that one file. So we can check if that worked correctly by doing git status here. It should say no commits yet. on the master branch, but we do have changes to be committed, and this file has it's staged to be committed. So here we can just do Git Commit, and then this M flag allows you to add a message to identify what like a description for the commit. So here I'll just say hello world print. So that should save this on my local machine in my version control, and we see that in Git status, it's no longer in the staging area because it's been committed and the head pointer has moved to this file, whereas it was empty when we initially did the initialize the repository. So this seems to be working. Here I can also show you on GitHub how to move it to the remote repository when you're working on a project that you're saving on GitHub. So here, and create a new repository. I'll just say, call it DSC test. And yeah, you can put something for the description. I'll just put hello world here again. Public, and you want to add a README. Usually you're going to want READMEs for most of your repositories just to have some documentation. You can create that. And yeah, so here we have the repository created. You can copy the link for it here, and you basically want to be able to Git push to, wait, I forgot to set up for it. How do you remember that, Shika?
Yeah, so you need to add the remote. So it's git add remote.
Is that just it?
Should be. 1 second, let me check.
Just type in git push and it'll give you the command.
Repository link.
That's what I do.
Okay.
Just do git push,
Okay,
and then
Git
it'll say
remote add.
you
Okay.
need to add remote add. Yep.
Git remote add and not git add remote.
Because git add remote,
Okay.
yeah, git add remote will actually look for a file named remote.
Right. Yeah.
What happened? Git remote add. Is it in quotes?
You need to give it a name, I think.
Where?
Like right here. Give it a name.
Oh, okay. Test. Like that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so maybe just git push. Oh,
So basically, since we have added test as the remote like destination, we need to link it to the local repository. So you'll have to use set upstream, the set upstream flag, to link it to your test.
that is it like that?
Mm,
I usually go, so this is the, I guess this is the hardest way to set up a Git repository. Um, I usually go one of the two ways. One is you set up a Git repository on your local machine, then push it to GitHub. Second is you create a GitHub repository on GitHub and just clone it. The second way is the easiest way you can do it, because creating a repository on GitHub is super easy. All you do is git clone, has everything set up and running.
Yeah, I just wanted to show like the git init tag and stuff, but yeah, that makes more sense. Do you want to take over and
Yeah.
show like the push and the pull stuff?
I can. If I start sharing, I'll go haywire.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. Okay, cool. Is it?
I see a question regarding what Git remote add does. Um, it is just a way of linking that not repos, that remote repository to your local repository. So you have this local folder set up. You have this folder on some server somewhere deep in the internet set up. This folder doesn't know the existence of the other folder, and the other folder doesn't know the existence of this folder. So you're just saying to each other, say, hey, I exist on this machine, and this is what you're saying to the remote repository, and a remote repository says, hey, I'm existing on this IP address, and you can send me all of your data on this IP address. And that's sort of how it goes. Does that make sense?
Okay. I can do it just here. I'll just clone it. So, git clone, and then here, we're using just like the repository that I've already created on GitHub to, we're going to clone it on my local machine. So I should have any file. So the README that's on the cloud, like GitHub right now, should come to the folder here once I clone it. Okay, cool. So we got the README, and it just has hello world in it. Yeah, so here we can create a new file. It's just file, and print 2 plus 2 here. Pretty simple. And then we can do the same thing as before. And git add, or yeah, so git add for our local repository that's been cloned. Oh, I still have to do git init here.
Have you cloned the repository?
Yeah.
You're
So
not in the
you have to CD
repository.
into it. You have to CD into it since it's
Oh,
a
yeah.
folder. Yeah.
Okay.
So when you clone a repository, it will create like a new folder for you within wherever you are right now. Then you need to CD into that.
Yeah. Okay. Now, okay, cool. It added, so we can do git status and check it out. So it's in the staging area. We have the new file added. So we can commit that with a message, add equation, something like that. Yeah, so when we check git status again, there's nothing in the staging area. Everything's been committed. So here should be able to just push it, and push enables it to go directly to GitHub. And it's asking me to log in. Stop sharing my screen for a second.
While we are waiting, one feature that I use a lot, and if you do use VS Code, um, that would be the on the left-hand side, there's sort of a source tree button that you can click. I think it's third from the top. Um, and what that helps you to do is literally see all of the changes you made and add, remove files via that, or even push commits via that. So it's really easy to use. Another cool tool that I like to use is called, wait, 1 second, let me get the right name. Pretty sure it's called Git. Yeah, okay, it's called Git Grass. So it's a VS Code extension that you can download, um, and it will show you the whole tree of how each branch worked with this commit and the progression of each commit, what each commit message was, and everything along those lines. So that's something that I use. It also links up to your remote repository, so you can technically push via that. So it's like sort of a local GitHub desktop setup inside VS Code, and then there's this other GitHub desktop setup with the GitHub desktop app. And then there's Git setup in your terminal. So you can use three different things. I usually use the one within VS Code, um, more or less because it's visual. So I can just, for adding files, I can just click the plus button. For removing files, I can just click the minus button and stage them, commit them, push them, all of that in one flow.
Aditi, are we ready?
I'm having some trouble.
Okay.
For some reason, it's not letting me log in. But I mean, it was basically just yeah. So
Yeah.
you should be able to push it if you're properly logged in, and it should show up on GitHub's website in that repository that you cloned into with the updated files.
Yeah, and I just want to add one thing here real quick. Actually show something real quick. So if you're having struggle with like setting up a Git repository locally or on GitHub, there's one very simple way to do it. Like if you just create a new repository and you don't know how exactly to like link it to your local repository, just don't initialize it with anything, keep it empty and just create it. So when the repository is created, GitHub will tell you automatically how you can link your local repository. So it will give you the commands that we were talking about. So it will tell you that you need to add a remote and you need to push to the main or master, and it will like basically walk you through the entire process. So even if you had trouble understanding something, I hope this clears up, because if you make an empty repository on GitHub, it will guide you how to set it up. So just wanted to add that real quick. Um, so I think we're done with the presentation, right? Okay. So any questions? If not, there's just a few last things that I wanted to reiterate. I'm putting a link in the chat. This is the link to last year's solution challenge projects, which won. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is that this year we have a theme for the solution challenge. So, your project needs to focus on one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So, you can definitely look at last year's projects, get inspiration, but remember that there is a theme this year. Um, like we mentioned, we have tons of opportunities. The Wiener Spiel project is a great place to get started if you don't yet have an idea. Or if you have an idea, you can submit it to us and we will help you find a team. Once you register for the solution challenge, you will have access to tons of resources like we've been talking about all along, that you'll have access to the think tank, you'll have access to an online community that is created by Google. It's called Parthian. And there are tons of like hundreds of Google developer experts ready to help you with your project. You can set up a meeting with them and just brainstorm ideas or just get their opinion on your project idea. Um, And once you sign up for the solution challenge, you also get free GCP credit, so you can start working with the Google Cloud Platform to host your project or use other tools. So definitely access these resources and leverage these opportunities. We will be sharing the slide deck and the recording for today's meeting in the Slack. And I'll also go ahead and post all the links that were shared in the chat today in the resources channel. So don't worry if you missed out on anything. But yeah, if you have any questions, you can post them in the questions channel. But that's it for the event today. Thank you so much for attending, everyone. And I'm going to stop the recording.